The woman on the phone from First Merit Bank said my water bill was 4 months overdue and headed to collections. I told her there must be a mistake. My daughter handled my bills. She'd been doing it for 3 years. There was a pause on the line. Then she said, "Mrs. Kovalenko, according to our records, the last payment we received from you was in February. It's now June." I remember sitting down at the kitchen table, the one where I'd fed my children breakfast for 30 years, and feeling the floor tilt slightly beneath me. 4 months? Jennifer had assured me everything was current. She'd shown me the checkbook just last month, all the entries in her neat handwriting, water, electric, phone, all marked paid. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time looking at the phone. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Jennifer usually stopped by on Tuesdays after her shift at the hospital, where she worked as a nurse. She'd bring groceries, sort my mail, write out checks for me to sign. It had started 3 years ago when I'd had cataract surgery and couldn't see well enough to manage the bills myself. By the time my vision cleared, Jennifer had the system running so smoothly it seemed foolish to take it back. "Mom, you shouldn't have to worry about this stuff," she'd said. "You raised 4 kids. You worked yourself to the bone after Dad died. Let me help you." And I had, because that's what you do when your daughter offers to help. You trust her. I went to my desk in the spare bedroom and pulled out the filing box where Jennifer kept all my statements and bills. Everything was organized by category, labeled in her handwriting. I found the water bill folder. The last statement inside was from January. Nothing after that. I checked the electric bill folder. Last statement, January. Phone bill, January. Cable, January. Everything stopped at January. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. For now, I just methodically went through every folder, making a small stack of last statements. January, January, January. 5 months of missing paperwork. The doorbell rang. I looked at the clock. 3:15, Jennifer's Tuesday time. I put the folders back exactly as I'd found them and went to answer the door. She was wearing her scrubs, pink with little cartoon bears that I'd always found too cheerful for someone who worked in oncology. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, but she smiled when she saw me. "Hi, Mom. How are you feeling?" "Fine," I said. "Come in." She had 2 grocery bags, which she carried to the kitchen and started unpacking. Bread, milk, the sugar-free jam I liked, chicken breasts, vegetables, all the things I would have bought myself if I still drove. I'd given up my license 2 years ago after a small accident that had shaken my confidence. Another thing Jennifer had helped with, driving me to appointments, to the grocery store, to church on Sundays when the weather was bad. "I brought the bills," she said, pulling a stack of envelopes from her purse. "Just the usual ones. I'll write out the checks and you can sign them." I watched her sit down at the kitchen table and spread out the envelopes. Electric, cable, phone, water. She had a pen ready, my checkbook open to a blank check. "Jennifer, the bank called today." She didn't look up. "Which bank? About what?" "First Merit, about the water bill. They said it's 4 months overdue." Her hand stopped moving. For just a second, everything went very still. Then she looked at me with confusion that seemed almost genuine. "That's impossible. I paid it. I pay everything on time." "They said the last payment was in February." Then they made a mistake. She reached for her phone. "I'll call them right now and straighten it out." "I'd like to see the statements," I said. "The recent ones. I only have them through January in my files." Something flickered across her face. "I have them at home. I've been meaning to bring them by. Things have been so hectic at work." "Can you bring them tomorrow?" "Of course." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Mom, I promise you, everything is fine. The bank probably just hasn't processed the payment yet. You know how slow they can be. She wrote out the checks. I signed them, my signature looking shaky next to her confident handwriting. She kissed my cheek when she left and told me not to worry. I worried. That night, I called my son, Desmond. He lived 2 hours away with his wife and 3 kids. We talked every Sunday, but I'd never called him on a Wednesday before. Mom, is everything okay? I need you to help me with something, and I need you not to tell Jennifer. There was a pause. What's going on? I told him about the phone call, about the missing statements, about Jennifer's reaction. She's probably telling the truth, he said. Banks make mistakes all the time, and Jen's been great about helping you out. I know, but I'd like to be sure. Another pause. What do you want me to do? Can you take me to the bank tomorrow? I want to look at my accounts. Yeah, of course. I'll come by around 10. After we hung up, I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the living room where my husband's ashes were in an urn. David had died 8 years ago, suddenly, a brain aneurysm while he was coaching our grandson's soccer game. One moment he was yelling encouragement from the sideline, the next he was on the ground. I don't know what's happening, I said to the urn, but something doesn't feel right. The urn, of course, said nothing. Desmond arrived at 9:45. He gave me a hug that lasted a little longer than usual and helped me into his truck. We drove to First Merit in silence. I'd banked there for 32 years. The manager, Lorraine Heightwater, had helped me refinance the house after David died. She greeted me with a warm smile that faded when I explained why we were there. Mrs. Kovalenko, I'm happy to go over your accounts with you, but I do need to ask, does Jennifer know you're here? No, I said, and I'd appreciate it if we kept this between us for now. Lorraine's expression became carefully neutral. Of course, let me pull up your information. We sat in her office, Desmond beside me, while Lorraine typed on her computer. She was quiet for a long time, too long. Mrs. Kovalenko, when was the last time you looked at your account statements? Jennifer brings them by every month. I look at the balances. Do you look at the transactions? My stomach dropped. Should I have been? She turned the monitor towards us. This is your checking account. You have automatic deposits from Social Security and your pension, correct? Yes, about $3,000 a month total. And your typical monthly expenses run about $1,800. That sounds right. She scrolled through the screen. Mrs. Kovalenko, in the last 5 months, there have been withdrawals totaling approximately $14,000 that don't correspond to your usual bills or expenses. The room felt very cold. Desmond leaned forward. What kind of withdrawals? Cash withdrawals, mostly. Some transfers to an account I don't have access to. It's not with this bank. And several large payments to credit card companies for cards that aren't in Mrs. Kovalenko's name. Show us, Desmond said, his voice tight. Lorraine printed out the statements, 6 months' worth. We sat there going through them line by line. My regular bills were there, paid late, but paid. And then there were other things, cash withdrawals of $500, $800, $300 at a time, transfers labeled simply XFER for amounts ranging from $200 to $1,000, payments to Capital One, Chase, Discover. I don't have credit cards with any of those companies, I said. No, Lorraine said quietly, but I believe Jennifer does. Desmond's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Can you tell us how much is left in the account? Lorraine looked at the screen. $438. 3 years ago, when I'd first let Jennifer start helping with the bills, I'd had almost $30,000 saved. It was my security, The cushion I'd built up from David's life insurance and careful budgeting, enough to handle emergencies, enough to leave something to my children when I died. Where did it go? I heard myself ask. Lorraine printed another document. These are the transaction histories for the past 3 years. It looks like the larger withdrawals started about 18 months ago. Before that, it was smaller amounts, $20 here, $50 there. Then it escalated. I thought about 18 months ago. Jennifer seemed stressed, I remembered. She said things were tight, that her husband, Mark, had lost his job at construction job. I offered to help, but she refused. "We'll manage, Mom. Don't worry about us." Don't worry. The same words she told me not to worry about the bills. "I need copies of everything," Desmond said, "and I need to know what our options are." "Your mother can file a police report," Lorraine said. "This appears to be financial exploitation of an elderly person. It's a crime. She can also freeze the account and require all future transactions to be authorized by her directly." "Do it," I said. "Freeze it. Now." Lorraine made the changes while we waited. Desmond sat with his arm around my shoulders. I wasn't crying. I felt too numb for tears, too empty, like someone had reached inside my chest and removed something vital. When we left the bank, Desmond drove us to a coffee shop. We sat in a booth in the back, the papers spread out on the table between us. "I can't believe this," he kept saying. "I can't believe Jen would do this to you." "I gave her access," I said. "I handed her everything." "You trusted your daughter. That's not the same as giving her permission to steal." Steal. The word felt too harsh and too accurate at the same time. "What do I do?" I asked. "We call the police. We file a report. We make her pay it back." "She's your sister." "She's a thief." His voice cracked. "She stole from our mother." I looked down at the statements. All those numbers, all that money gone, not spent on me, not used for my care. Used for what? Credit card debt? Cash to cover her own bills? Maybe gambling? Maybe drugs? Maybe just the slow drowning of living beyond your means and taking what you needed from someone who trusted you. "I need to talk to her first," I said. "Mom, I need to hear it from her. I need to understand." Desmond drove me home. He wanted to stay, but I sent him away. I needed to think. I sat in my living room with the statements on the coffee table and waited. Jennifer came by that evening, unscheduled, unexpected. She let herself in with the key I'd given her 3 years ago. "Mom," she called, "are you home?" "In here." She came into the living room and stopped when she saw the papers on the table. Her face went white. "Desmond called you," I said. She nodded. "Sit down." She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped in her lap. She looked small suddenly, younger than her 42 years. "Tell me why," I said. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then quietly, "Mark lost his job 2 years ago. Not reduced hours, lost it. He was drinking, gambling, spending money we didn't have. By the time I found out, we were $60,000 in debt." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed. Because I'm supposed to have it together. I'm a nurse. I make good money. I shouldn't have let him do that to us. So you took mine instead." She flinched. "It started small, just $20 here and there to cover groceries when we didn't have enough to make it to payday. Then the mortgage was due and we were short, and I knew you had it, and I thought I'd just borrow it and put it back." "Borrow implies asking permission." I know, Mom. I was going to tell you. I was going to pay it back. But then there was another bill and another, and I couldn't keep up. The debt just kept growing, and you had so much just sitting there. $30,000. I had $30,000 saved. Do you know how long it took me to save that? How many extra shifts your father worked? How many things I went without? She was crying now. I'm sorry. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. The bills, the ones you told me were paid? I paid some of them late. I used your money to pay our bills instead. I kept thinking I'd catch up, that Mark would get another job, that we'd get back on track. But we didn't. And the credit cards? Mine. All mine. I maxed them out trying to keep us afloat. I used your money to make the minimum payments so we wouldn't lose the house. I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, whose fevers I'd nursed, and whose tears I'd dried, and whose college I helped pay for, and I tried to find anger, rage, something hot and clean, but all I felt was cold. I let you think I was losing my mind, I said. When the bank called about the water bill, you looked me in the eye and lied. I panicked. I thought if I could just hold on a little longer. You stole from me, Jennifer. You forged my signature. You took money that was supposed to keep me safe, keep me independent. What was I supposed to do if I'd had an emergency, a medical bill, a broken furnace? What would have happened then? She was sobbing, her whole body shaking. I don't know. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I was just trying to survive by sacrificing me.
I never meant. What you meant doesn't matter. What you did is all that matters. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but I made myself walk to the door and open it. I need you to leave.
Mom, please.
Leave. She left. I closed the door behind her and locked it. Then I sat on the floor in the hallway and finally cried. Not for the money, not even for the betrayal, but for the loss of something I could never get back, the ability to trust my own daughter. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Lorraine from the bank had given me a name, Odette Fenstermacher, who specialized in elder abuse cases. We met in her office downtown. Desmond came with me. Odette was in her 50s, gray hair cut short, eyes that had probably seen versions of my story 100 times before. She listened while I explained everything, looking through the bank statements Desmond had organized in a folder. When she finished, she sat back. Mrs. Kovalenko, what do you want to happen here? I want my money back. That may not be possible. If Jennifer spent it, if it's gone, there's nothing to recover. Then I want her to be held accountable. You can file criminal charges. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony in this state. But you need to understand what that means. Your daughter could go to jail. She could lose her nursing license. It will destroy her financially and possibly her marriage. She destroyed me financially. I know, and I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue this. I'm saying you should know what you're choosing. Desmond leaned forward. What are the other options? You can pursue civil remedies, sue for the money. You'll likely win, but again, if she doesn't have assets to seize, a judgment doesn't give you actual money back. You can also work out a repayment plan directly with her, though I wouldn't recommend doing that without legal oversight. I don't want her to see her in jail, I heard myself say. But I need her to understand what she did, and I need her to pay back what she can. Odette nodded. Then here's what I suggest. We file a civil suit for the full amount. We get a judgment. Then we negotiate a repayment plan that's supervised by the court. If she fails to comply, we can escalate to criminal charges. It gives her a chance to make this right, but it also protects you. Do it. The lawsuit was filed 2 weeks later. Jennifer's husband, Mark, called me, angry, defensive. I hung up on him. Jennifer herself didn't call at all. My other children did, though. My youngest, David Jr., wanted to know why I was tearing the family apart. My oldest, Susan, said Jennifer made a mistake, but she was still my daughter, and didn't I believe in forgiveness? I believe in consequences, I told her, and I believe your sister needs to face them. The court date was set for September, 3 months away. In the meantime, Odette filed a motion to freeze any assets Jennifer might have and to compel financial disclosure. Mark and Jennifer had to provide documentation of their income, debts, assets. What came back was grim. They had no savings. Their house had $60,000 in equity, but $120,000 remaining on the mortgage. Mark was working part-time at a warehouse. Jennifer's nursing salary was their only steady income, and most of it went to minimum payments on credit cards and loans. They're drowning, Odette told me. Even if we get a judgment, I don't know how much you'll realistically recover. I don't care. I want the judgment. But I did care. Late at night, I lay in bed and thought about Jennifer as a little girl, how she'd love to help me in the kitchen, standing on a stool to stir the soup, how she'd been the one to hold my hand at David's funeral when I couldn't stop shaking, how she'd driven me to every doctor's appointment after my cataract surgery, patient and kind. That person and the person who'd stolen from me were the same person. I didn't know how to reconcile that. Desmond came by every week. He'd taken over my bills, but we'd set up a system where I could see everything, where nothing happened without my explicit approval. He helped me set up online banking so I could check my accounts whenever I wanted. Slowly, carefully, I was learning to manage my own finances again. I should have been doing this all along, I said one afternoon. You trusted Jen. That was reasonable. Was it? Or was I just lazy, just willing to let someone else handle the hard parts? Mom, don't do that. Don't make this your fault. But wasn't it at least partly? I'd handed over control because it was easier, because Jennifer had been so insistent, because I'd wanted to believe I'd raised children who would care for me the way I cared for them. The court date arrived on a Thursday morning, cool and clear. Desmond drove me downtown to the courthouse. Odette met us outside. Jennifer's lawyer contacted me. They want to settle. They're offering a payment plan of $200 a month for 10 years. That's $24,000 total. It's not the full amount, but it's more than we'd likely get from a judgment given their financial situation. What do you think I should do?
I think you should accept it. Not because it's fair. It's not. But because it's real money. And it gives Jennifer a chance to make partial restitution. We went inside. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood paneling and fluorescent lights. Jennifer was already there with her lawyer, a young man in an ill-fitting suit. She looked thin, hollowed out. When she saw me, she started to cry. The judge was a woman, older, with reading glasses on a chain. She looked over the proposed settlement, asked a few questions, then looked at me. Mrs. Kovalenko, do you accept the terms of this agreement? I looked at Jennifer. She was staring at her hands, tears dripping onto the table. Yes, I said, I accept. The judge made it official. Jennifer would pay $200 a month every month for the next 10 years. If she missed a payment, I could pursue criminal charges. The agreement was binding and would be reported to credit agencies. Afterward, in the hallway, Jennifer approached me. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she waved him off. Mom, she said, thank you. Don't thank me, just pay. I will, I promise. Your promises don't mean much to me anymore. She flinched, but nodded. I understand, but I want you to know I'm getting help. Mark's in rehab for gambling addiction. I'm seeing a therapist. We're trying to fix this. Fix your own life, Jennifer. Mine is no longer your concern. I walked away. Desmond took my arm, and we left her standing there. The first payment arrived on October 1st, right on time.
a check for $200, Jennifer's signature in the memo line. I deposited it and watched my account balance go from 438 to 638. In 10 years, if she never missed a payment, I'd have $24,000 back. Not the 30 I'd lost, but something, more than nothing. I thought about what I'd do with it. There was a part of me that wanted to donate it all to charity, to get rid of it, to refuse to benefit from my daughter's crime, but that felt like punishing myself for her mistakes. Instead, I decided I'd save it, every penny, and when I died, I'd leave it to Desmond's kids for college, not to Jennifer's children. Maybe that was petty, maybe it was just practical. Either way, it was my choice. Life continued. I learned to manage my own bills, to check my account regularly, to ask questions when something didn't make sense. I joined a support group at the senior center for people who'd experienced financial abuse. There were 12 of us. Most of the stories involved adult children. One woman's son had stolen her identity and opened credit cards. Another woman's daughter-in-law had convinced her to sign over her house. We met once a month and drank weak coffee and told our stories. It helped, not because it made what happened okay, but because it made it real. It gave it a name and a shape and a community of people who understood. If stories like this resonate with you, you may want to stay with this channel. These stories are told for people who understand. A year after the lawsuit, Jennifer sent me a birthday card. Inside was a check for $200, her regular payment, and a note. "Mom, I know I can't fix what I did, but I want you to know I think about it every day. I'm sorry. I love you. Jennifer." I cashed the check. I didn't respond to the card. Susan called me that week. "You know, Mom, at some point you're going to have to forgive her." "Why?" "Because she's your daughter, because holding on to anger will just hurt you." "I'm not holding on to anger. I'm holding on to boundaries. There's a difference." I didn't know if I'd ever forgive Jennifer. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But forgiveness wasn't something I owed her. It wasn't a debt to be paid or a box to be checked. It was something I'd give if and when I was ready, and not a moment before. Desmond asked me once if I regretted filing the lawsuit. I said no. "Do you think I should?" He said, "I think you did what you had to do. I think you protected yourself. I just hope it was worth the cost." The cost? A daughter I no longer spoke to, a family divided. Susan barely talked to me. David Jr. had chosen sides, Jennifer's. Desmond was the only one who'd stood by me unconditionally. But the alternative had been worse. The alternative had been letting Jennifer destroy me and pretending it was love. 2 years after everything fell apart, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Jennifer. We both froze. She had a cart full of generic brands and sale items. I had my small basket of weekly staples. "Hi, Mom," she said quietly. "Hello. How are you?" "Fine." An awkward pause. She looked older, I thought, more lines around her eyes. "Mark got a full-time job, foreman at a construction company. We're doing better." "Good." "I'm still making the payments. I haven't missed one." "I know." She nodded, started to push her cart away, then stopped. "I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it anyway. What I did to you was unforgivable. I know that, but I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be someone worthy of being your daughter again." I looked at her for a long moment. There was a part of me that wanted to reach out, to hug her, to tell her I understood and that we'd be okay, but I wasn't sure either of those things was true.
Keep making the payments, I said. That's what I need from you right now. She nodded again, and we parted ways. That night, I sat in my living room and thought about trust, how easily it breaks, how hard it is to rebuild, whether it's even possible. I didn't have answers, but I did have $438 that had grown to $7,000 and change over 2 years of monthly payments. I had my house, still mine, still safe. I had my independence, hard-won and carefully guarded. And I had the knowledge that when everything fell apart, when the person I trusted most betrayed me, I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd protected myself. Maybe that wasn't forgiveness, but it was enough.